Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be continuing getting the scratch coat of lime plaster onto this block. In this video you're going to see us just doing this with hand tools. We're not going to be spraying it, but we're going to be trying out different tools and techniques as we're doing this. And we found some ways that are not standard that actually made this a little bit easier for us to get it on the block. So hope you enjoy the video. Even though it makes my hand go numb faster, I think I like putting it on better with a drywall.
Well,
Because it's less of a pain in the...
beep.
Yeah. Well, it's just...
More controlled
And less of a mess.
and you have to go over it anyway.
Anyway, with the trowel.
Yeah, if you spray it.
I mean, if I was doing an area the size of all of those garage walls without all the masking and crap, sure.
Yeah.
But The camera doesn't really pick it up here, but what I'm doing is trying to fill a pretty bad low spot in the block right here. So I'm building this out and then using the straight edge of the trowel to get it so that it's visually on plane. Because remember, this is the scratch coat, and we'll come back and get it a lot smoother and looking a lot better on the finish coat.
Yes, it's messy.
Well, you're trying to get done with what you got in the bucket.
Well, I mean, the stuff just falls all over.
Well, this we can scrape and vacuum, so.
Start out the way I've been doing this. Hold the trowel like this, flip it upside down so it's on the back of your hand, and then scoop in there, get a little bit, and put it on, smooth it out. Okay? You ain't got to get all crazy. You just stick it on. Okay, you're still going really fast. It's not going to jump off of there, but it will slide off. There you go.
Does that come back the other direction?
I would. Now, normally you would start in that upper left corner.
Oh, okay.
Once you get it down to a certain level, you can just take the whole trowel and scoop it off into the hawk. What I'm saying is once you get down to a certain level,
Are you saying level of skill or?
no, just a certain level of stuff on the hawk. It's easier because if you try to do it with too much on there, you make a big mess, or at least I do. I think part of that is a function of how loose that stuff is because the moisture is in the sand. And you'll find that the more you have on there, the easier it is to smooth it out and work it to get a decent finish. And you don't want to work it too much because you bring too much moisture to the surface and it breaks the bond of the lime to the substrate.
The room we're working on now is our pantry. And we decided to use OSB instead of drywall in here because we did not know at this time what kind of shelving system we were going to put in here. So if we were going to hang cabinets or anything on the walls, we wanted to get the flexibility of not having to find a stud. What we found out is that the plaster actually adheres pretty good to the rough texture of the OSB. Unfortunately, we did not put enough primer on it to keep the moisture from causing sections of the OSB to lift, and so we had a lot of cracking and adhesion problems in this room as this stuff dried. I mean, we figured out how to fix it, but it was, you know, not the best. Had we put 2 coats of primer on there, it probably would have worked a lot better.
Show off your scratch coat tool. Look at that.
I still gotta finish the wall that my helper quit on.
I'm filming the scratch coat that I did here.
Oh.
Plaster chemically bonds or something or other to the paint, and it
Make sure they're peeled into the corner and not out of the corner.
We decided to do plaster on all of the walls inside of our pantry because of the properties that lime plaster brings to the interior environment. It really helps in managing your humidity levels, and it also has antimicrobial properties. For hundreds of years, this stuff has been used in food storage and production areas. Used to, you would see it used in dairy farms, in the milking and cheese and butter production areas all the time. So we just figured it would be a good environment for our food storage area. this is our master closet, and you know, it's got 2 exterior block walls, so we knew we were going to be putting lime plaster on there. But one of the reasons that we were happy to be putting the lime plaster in this closet is that it adjoins the master bath, and we were concerned about humidity. I mean, we've got an exhaust fan in the bathroom and all that, but the humidity control and antimicrobial properties we just kind of thought would be a good thing to have in our closet where we're storing, you know, clothes and shoes and that kind of stuff.
All right. I guess we're ready for scratching. Once it's ready for scratching.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rough crap right in here that
Yeah.
we're gonna have to fix with the
Well,
next coat.
since you
Since I successfully pulled off a Tom Sawyer with my wife, she's working on this plaster while I'm doing some other stuff. And you'll see she's using a little bit different technique to get that plaster on the wall than we were using in the previous segment, because it was difficult for her to balance the hawk and work off of it. And she didn't really like the square corners on the trowel she was using because they were digging in. She's now using a pool trowel, which is radiused on both ends, and it's a lot more flexible. And she's loading the trowel using a margin trowel straight out of the bucket. She found that to be a lot easier way for her to get plaster from the bucket onto the wall.
they come beyond carpal tunnel. So that they come beyond carpal tunnel.
And here in the living room, you're going to see that I have skim coated a lot of stuff with mortar. And the reason that I've done that is twofold. One, the block that was in here had a lot of issues. There were many blocks that it looked like the Portland was not mixed very well with the styrofoam, and so there were big chunks of Portland in the block, and as you started messing with it, you know, they would just come out. And so it left big indentations in the face of the block. But the primary reason I did it is we've discovered from putting plaster on other places in the house that the foam in the joints causes the plaster to dry differently than it does on the face of the block, and it results in cracking. And so to give a more even surface and hopefully prevent some of that cracking in the future as this stuff is drying, I went ahead and skim coated this to maybe give us a little bit better finish in the main part of the house than we've got in some of the other areas. Pain in getting this plaster on is where drywall meets plaster. The drywall isn't cut very close to the block, and it's not filled very well with drywall mud. So getting these gaps filled in is kind of a pain in the butt. And we've also found that the moisture and probably the alkalinity of the lime is causing the paint to lift at that junction. So we're going to have to come back and touch up paint. But we're going to have to do that anyway because we skint the paint in several places. Now, one of the things that we found to be easier is to come back and trim out the electrical boxes once this stuff has started setting up, but not after it gets hard. Just once it starts setting up, come back and cut out the perimeter of the box. So. And that's what happens if you don't keep your trowel at an angle. You let it get flat, it sucks to the wet plaster and pulls it right off. I am by no means a professional at this. You know, I just did quite a bit of research before we decided to do this. Books and YouTube, and if you're interested in plastering techniques, that kind of stuff, there's a really good YouTube channel called Plastering for Beginners that is a British guy, and he does a really good job of giving you tips and pointers and things like that. Now, I am not implementing all of the techniques that he recommend because we're after a little bit different aesthetic than what he typically does on installation, but it's a good resource anyway. The look we're after is kind of a modified version of what the Italians call stucco rustico, which is basically rustic stucco or rustic plaster, and what most people would consider a finished plaster job from 100 years ago. We don't want it completely smooth like, you know, Georgian or Victorian plaster or Edwardian, but we also don't want it to be completely like an agricultural building. We want it to be kind of in between. So. And you're seeing me do this with different tools in different ways. One, so y'all got an idea of the different ways you can do this. But two, just kind of depends on what tool I've got in my hand, what I feel like using, and where it is that I'm trying to get this stuff stuck. Because sometimes it's much more effective to use one of the drywall knives than it is to try to use a trowel. All right, now that this stuff has started setting up, it's time to scratch it, hence the name scratch coat. And what this does is it gives the next coating of plaster something to grab onto. It gives it tooth. So we're trying not to scratch it too deep. And you know, there's places where It's not as dry as others, but it's overall close enough that I need to get it done before it sets up so much that you can't scratch it. And what you want to do is basically scratch it in a diagonal pattern at as close to a 45 as you can. And that helps drain the water on your next coat. And you wouldn't think that it would be real obvious, but when the next coat goes on, during the drying process, you can see these lines and they'll be wetter than the surrounding plaster that's in between the lines.
Have you seen how you're supposed to do this? I mean, I think you just run the tool down there, but when I tried it over in there, I couldn't get it to the.
Well, this didn't work very well for an inside corner for me. That bigger one worked better, the springy.
Yeah.
You know, the one from the 1970s that I've been carting around.
Yeah.
But this is an outside corner, and this is the only plaster outside corner in this house.
Well, there's that one in the garage that swings under the stairs.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I mean, if you wanna practice.
That ain't cutting it. This may need to be, let this firm up
Yeah, I don't know.
and,
'Cause I tried to use like a little bit thicker stuff, you know,
yeah.
and then you just compress it or something.
I don't know either. Yeah, I think this is gonna end up being like I've been doing the inside corners. Just fiddly on the finish coat with a trowel. You know?
Yeah, I don't know what the trick is.
I don't either. I guess if I was trying to do this for a living, I'd try to figure it out. Because if it irritates me enough, you know what the trick's gonna be? Piece of trim stuck over there and get painted. So, there you go, solution to the problem. All right, folks, I think that's going to wrap this video up for today. Thank you for watching, and y'all have a good day.